When Claire Bennett signed the lease, she thought she'd found the perfect fresh start. A small, affordable apartment in a crumbling old building downtown. The neighbors kept to themselves, the walls were thick, and the landlord barely asked any questions. It wasn't much, but after her messy breakup, Claire just needed quiet. And quiet was exactly what she got. At first. The first night passed uneventfully, though she swore the air smelled faintly of mildew and copper. On the second night, as she unpacked boxes, she heard it. So soft she thought it was her imagination. A whisper. She froze, head tilted, eyes on the yellowed wallpaper peeling from the corner. Nothing. She laughed it off, shaking her head. Old buildings made strange noises. Pipes groaned, vents carried sound, rats scratched at the wood. It was nothing. But later, lying in bed, she heard it again. A voice, low, broken, words she couldn't quite make out. Coming from inside the walls. Claire pressed her ear to the cracked plaster, heart hammering. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, so close it made her skin crawl, a whisper hissed, "We see you." The next morning, Claire convinced herself she dreamed it. Stress, exhaustion, maybe even the hum of the radiator. Still, when she walked down the narrow hallway of the building, she couldn't shake the feeling that the walls were listening. She met her neighbors that day. Mrs. Callahan in 2B, an elderly woman with glassy eyes who clutched a rosary so tight her knuckles turned white. She asked Claire no questions, only pressed a hand to her arm and whispered, "Don't answer them." Claire asked what she meant, but the woman just shuffled away, muttering a prayer under her breath. Then there was Mark in 3C, a gaunt man in his 30s who smelled faintly of alcohol. He gave a nervous laugh when Claire mentioned hearing noises at night. "Yeah," he said, scratching at his arm until it bled. "They start with whispers, then they get bolder. Best thing is, don't talk back." "Who's they?" Claire asked. But he was already walking away, his eyes darting nervously to the walls. That night she tried to sleep with music playing, earbuds in, but at exactly 3:15 a.m., her phone glitched. The screen turned white, the music cut out, and in the silence, she heard it again. The whisper, right beside her bed. "Claire." Her heart nearly stopped. The voice knew her name. She forced herself to keep still, eyes shut tight, until the dawn light finally crept through the blinds. When she opened her eyes, the wallpaper on the wall beside her bed was torn. Not peeling, torn, as though something inside had been trying to claw its way out. Claire spent the next day staring at the torn wallpaper. She told herself it had been loose already, that she must have pulled it in her sleep. But when she tugged the flap back, she saw something worse. A crack ran deep into the plaster, jagged like a wound, and from inside it came a faint breath of air, warm, foul, carrying the stench of rot. Her stomach churned. She pushed the wallpaper flat again and tried to forget. That night, she dreamed of hands pressing against the walls from the inside, thin, pale fingers dragging down the plaster, nails scratching until they split. She woke drenched in sweat, her bedroom thick with silence. And then came the tapping. Light at first, like a fingertip against the wall. Tap, tap, tap. Claire pressed her pillow over her head, but the tapping grew louder, more insistent, until it sounded like fists pounding just inches from her face. She snapped,
"Stop it!" she shouted, her voice trembling. The pounding stopped instantly. For a moment, she felt relief, until the whisper slid back, soft as a lover's breath, curling through the cracks in the plaster. "You heard us." Her phone buzzed suddenly on the nightstand. She snatched it up, desperate for distraction. The screen lit, but instead of the time or her lock screen, 3 words glared back at her in black letters on white. "Let us out." The phone slipped from her shaking hands. The cracks in the wall spread wider.
The next morning, Claire couldn't ignore it anymore. The cracks in the wall had widened overnight, jagged lines splitting across the plaster like veins. Behind them, she swore she saw movement, shadows shifting in the dark. She borrowed a hammer from the maintenance closet. She told herself she just needed to prove it was nothing. Old pipes, vermin, her imagination. The first swing of the hammer sent plaster crumbling. Dust choked the air. Another swing, another crack, until finally a chunk of the wall gave way. Behind it wasn't insulation or bricks. It was a door. A small wooden door set into the wall, no taller than her chest. The paint was peeling, the wood warped with age. A rusted latch held it shut. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She hesitated, every instinct screaming at her to stop, but the whispers rose again, soft, eager, coaxing. "Claire, we're waiting." Her hand shook as she pulled the latch. The door creaked open. A wave of air poured out, hot and sour, like breath exhaled after years in the dark. She gagged and raised her phone light. The beam revealed a narrow crawl space, no wider than a coffin. The walls were lined with more wallpaper, faded, stained, torn by claw marks. And further inside, just barely visible, something moved. It wasn't a rat. It was a hand, thin, gray, fingers stretching toward her. The phone slipped in her grip. Before she could retreat, the hand pressed against the inside of the crawl space wall, and dozens of whispers hissed together, urgent, desperate, hungry. "Let us in." Claire slammed the hidden door shut and staggered back, her breath ragged. The latch barely held as the whispers swelled, pressing against the wood from the other side. She fled into the hallway, desperate for help. Mrs. Callahan's door opened before she even knocked. The old woman's eyes were wide, terrified. "You opened it, didn't you?" she rasped. Claire tried to answer, but the words caught in her throat. Mrs. Callahan grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. "They don't want freedom. They want a body. They'd been here longer than the building, longer than any of us. And now, they've found you." Claire tore free and stumbled back, shaken. She ran to Mark's door. He opened it a crack, his face pale and damp with sweat. I told you," he muttered, voice breaking. "Don't talk to them. Don't let them know your name. It's too late now." From inside his apartment, Claire heard a faint chorus of whispers. Not through the walls, inside his room. His eyes darted behind him, then back to her. "Get out while you still can." That night, she didn't sleep. She sat in the center of her apartment, every light on, staring at the wall where the hidden door waited. The whispers didn't come from just there anymore. They bled from the ceiling, the floor, the vents. They layered over each other, hundreds of voices, chanting, moaning, calling her name. Claire, Claire, Claire.
And then, beneath the voices, she heard something else. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving inside the walls, coming closer.
The footsteps stopped right behind her bedroom wall. Claire held her breath, clutching the hammer like a weapon. For a moment, there was silence. Then a voice, unlike the whispers, clear, deep, steady, spoke from inside the plaster. "Let us out, and we'll let you live." Her blood turned to ice. "What are you?" she whispered, unable to stop herself. The wall shuddered as if something huge pressed against it from the other side. The voice answered in a hiss that rattled her bones. "We are everyone who came before you." Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. The screen lit with a single message, though no one had touched it. "Welcome, new tenant." The lights flickered. The wallpaper bulged outwards, the shape of faces pressing against it from inside, mouths open, eyes wide, whispering her name over and over. Claire screamed and swung the hammer into the wall. The plaster cracked, split, gave way. The hidden door burst open on its own. A torrent of shadows poured out, arms, faces, crawling bodies, all fused together, writhing and shrieking. They swarmed over her, dragging her into the crawl space, into the darkness. The last thing she saw before the door slammed shut was the torn wallpaper smoothing itself, erasing every trace of what had happened. The apartment was silent again. Weeks later, a new tenant arrived. The landlord smiled, handed over the keys, and said the same words he had said 100 times before. "Welcome home. The walls are thick here. You won't hear a thing." But that night, as the new tenant unpacked, they heard it. A whisper. Soft, patient, hungry. "We see you."